Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. Tonight we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything.
Alice.
Where you're watching from in the comments, and if this story touches your heart, like, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Asterisk, the blood on Mara's knuckles had dried to a rust-colored crust by the time she stepped into the dive bar on 5th Street. Neon beer signs cast sickly yellow light across her face, highlighting the fresh bruise blooming along her left cheekbone. The place reeked of stale cigarettes and broken dreams. Exactly what she needed tonight. She ordered whiskey. Neat. And didn't flinch when the bartender's eyes lingered on her split lip. 3 months since she'd walked away from everything that mattered. And she still woke up swinging at ghosts. The man at the end of the bar had been watching her for 10 minutes. Dark hair, expensive suit that didn't belong in a place like this, and eyes that held the same hollow recognition she saw in her mirror every morning. When he finally approached, his voice carried the weight of someone who'd learned to speak carefully. "You look like someone who understands that some conversations are better had in shadows." Mara studied his face, noting the careful way he held. His left shoulder, the faint scar that disappeared beneath his collar, depends on the conversation. It's the kind where two people with blood on their hands find themselves in the same godforsaken bar at 2 a.m. He gestured to the empty stool beside her. "I'm David." She almost gave him a fake name, almost. Mara. Mara. He tasted her name like wine. "What brings you to this particular circle of hell?" The question hit deeper than it should have. Knocked back her whiskey, feeling it burn away the memory of her father's disappointed face. The sound of her sister's door slamming shut. Same thing that brings everyone here. Running from something that won't let me go. David's smile was sharp enough to cut. "And what if I told you I might be able to help with that?" Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. The name on the screen made her blood turn to ice water. Marcus. The text was simple, devastating. Found. You. Time's up. Her hand trembled as she set the phone down. David's eyes had gone predatory alert. "Problem?" he asked. Mara looked at this stranger who'd materialized from nowhere, offering help she desperately needed but couldn't trust. Outside, a black sedan pulled up to the curb, engine running. "Yeah," she whispered. "The kind that gets people killed." Asterisk David's. Penthouse overlooked the city like a glass cage 40 stories above the streets. Mara pressed her back against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Watching the black sedan circle the block below, for the 3rd time in 20 minutes. "They're persistent," David observed, pouring himself scotch from a crystal decanter that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Marcus doesn't give up." Mara's fingers found the scar on her wrist, a nervous habit she developed since the warehouse incident. 3 years I worked for him, thought I was family, and I found out what he really did to people who tried to leave. And what was that? The memory hit like a physical blow. Sarah's empty apartment, the blood on the bathroom tiles. The note that said, "This is what happens to thieves." "He made an example," she said quietly. David moved closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe. Fear. "I know who Marcus Volkov is," he said. "I also know that 6 months ago, someone cleaned out 3 of his offshore accounts. $12 million, vanished without a trace." Mara's heart hammered against her ribs. That someone have a name? It's the same someone who's been running ever since. It's the same someone who just walked into my life at exactly the right moment. David's smile was wolves in winter. "I need Marcus gone, Mara, and you need to disappear. Permanently." She turned to face him fully, studying the careful way he held himself, the practiced neutrality of his expression. "What aren't you telling me? That Marcus killed my brother 2 years ago over a territory dispute. That I've been planning my revenge ever since." His voice dropped to something deadly soft. "You're going to help me destroy him, or I'm going to let him find you." The threat hung between them like smoke. Outside, the sedan had stopped circling. 3 men in dark coats stepped onto the sidewalk, their faces tilted up toward the building. How do I know you won't just hand me over when this is done? Mara asked. David reached into his jacket, and for a wild second she thought he was going for a gun. Instead, he pulled out a photograph. A young man with David's eyes and a smile that belonged in sunlight, not shadows. Because some debts can only be paid in blood, he said. And some people understand that redemption requires burning everything down first. Mara looked at the photo, then at David's face, raw with old grief and fresh hate. She'd spent 3 months running from Marcus, 3 months looking over her shoulder, 3 months dying slowly inside. Maybe it was time to stop running. What's the plan? She asked. David's smile was beautiful and terrible. You make him remember why he should have let you go. The building's fire alarm started screaming, and through the windows Mara saw smoke. Beginning to rise from the lobby, the abandoned textile factory on the south side held ghosts in every shadow. Mara crouched behind a rusted loom, her breath misting in the October cold, watching David plant the last of the charges along the support beams. 2 weeks of planning had led to this moment. Marcus would come, thinking he'd finally cornered her, and walk into a trap that would bury him and his operation forever. Signals strong, David whispered through the comms. He's 5 minutes out with a full crew. Mara checked her gun for the dozenth time. The weight of it felt wrong in her hands now, after everything, after the night spent in David's bed sharing secrets that should have stayed buried. After learning that his touch could make her forget the sound of Sarah's last phone call, David, her voice cracked on his name. After this is over, we disappear. New names, new lives, together. His voice was steady, certain. I meant what I said. The factory doors exploded inward with a sound like thunder. Marcus's voice echoed through the cavernous space, filled with the kind of calm that preceded violence. Mara, sweetheart, I know you're here. Let's talk about that money you took. She could see him now, tall and silver-haired, flanked by 6 men with weapons drawn. The same predatory smile he'd worn the day he'd recruited her off the streets, promising safety, family, a future. I also know you're not alone, Marcus continued, his footsteps deliberate on the concrete floor. Hello, David. It's been a while since your brother's funeral. David's sharp intake of breath crackled through the cum. Mara's blood turned to ice. That's right, sweetheart, Marcus called. Your new boyfriend never mentioned that Tommy Martinez was working for me when he died, did he? Never mentioned that his dear brother was the one who ordered the hit? The world tilted sideways. Mara pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. Tommy Martinez. David's last name wasn't Rodriguez like he'd told her. It was Martinez. And she remembered Tommy Martinez. Remembered the night Marcus had sent her to deliver a package to the docks. Remembered the way Tommy had looked at her with desperate eyes and said, "Tell them I tried to run." David, she whispered into the silence.
David.
Say more. Silence. And then the terrible understanding crashed over her. The charges weren't just for Marcus. They were for everyone in the building, including her. Marcus's laughter was poison honey. He's been planning this for 2 years, sweetheart. Every detail, including finding the one person with enough reason to hate me that she'd walk into a building full of explosives. Mara's hand shook as she reached for the radio. As she heard David's voice finally come through the static, broken and desperate, and real for the first time since she'd known him. I'm sorry, Mara. God, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way. She could see him now, silhouetted in the doorway, his finger hovering over a detonator. His face was streaming with tears. I loved him, David said. He was all I had left, and you people took him from me. Marcus raised his gun, aimed it at Mara's heart. The funny thing is, she didn't even know Tommy existed until tonight. Your brother died for nothing, and now she will too. In that moment, suspended between 2 different kinds of betrayal, Mara understood that love and vengeance wore the same face in the dark. Time fractured into heartbeats. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. David stood frozen in the doorway, torn between revenge and something that might have been love. And Mara, caught between them, made a choice that surprised them all. She stepped out from behind the loom, hands raised, gun forgotten on the floor. You want to know about your brother, David? She called out, her voice carrying across the factory like a prayer. Tommy didn't die for nothing. He died trying to save a 16-year-old girl from being sold. David's face went white. What? That package I delivered the night he died? It wasn't drugs or money. It was proof. It's photos, documents, names of buyers. Mara's eyes never left Marcus's gun. Tommy was gathering evidence to bring down the trafficking ring. He was going to take it to the FBI. Marcus's smile faltered. Shut up. He begged me to run, Mara continued, taking a step forward. Said they'd discovered what he was doing. Said Marcus would kill anyone who knew. Another step. I was too scared to help him, too scared to stay. I ran and let him die alone, Mara. Don't. David's voice was breaking. The money I stole, it wasn't for me. She was close enough now to see the uncertainty in Marcus's eyes. It was compensation for the families, the girls who never made it home. Marcus snarled. Touching story doesn't change anything. It changes everything, Mara said quietly, because David never ordered Tommy's death. You did. Because Tommy was going to expose what you really are. The detonator slipped in David's sweat-slicked fingers.
Understanding
Dawned on his face. Like sunrise, after the longest night? You lying bitch, Marcus growled, swinging the gun toward Mara. That's when she moved. 3 years of running had taught her to be fast, but this wasn't about speed. This was about timing. She tackled Marcus as the gun went off, feeling the bullet tear through her shoulder, spinning her around. David's roar of anguish echoed through the factory as they hit the ground. Marcus's men raised their weapons, but David was already moving, the detonator forgotten as he charged into the fray. Mara rolled away from Marcus, her shoulder on fire, and found her discarded gun. The families, she gasped to David as he dropped beside her, pressing his hands against her wound. The 12 million, it's an account for 47B at First National, under Sarah Chen's name. David's eyes widened. Sarah Chen was the girl Tommy died trying to save. She survived. She's in college now. Mara's vision was starting to blur at the edges. Password is Tommy's badge number. Round them, Marcus's men were closing in. David looked at the detonator, then at Mara, then made his own choice. He pressed it into her hands. There's a service tunnel behind the east wall. It leads to the storm drains. He kissed her forehead, and his lips came away bloody. When I say run, you run, David, no. He smiled, and for the first time since she'd known him, it was completely genuine. My brother would have liked you. David Martinez stood up, drew his gun, and walked directly into the line of fire. The world exploded into chaos. Gunshots. Screams. And through it all, Mara crawled toward the east wall. The detonator clutched against her chest, David's sacrifice burning in her throat like acid. Behind her, Marcus's voice cut through the violence. Find her. Kill her. Burn this place. To the ground? She reached the tunnel entrance just as footsteps pounded across the factory floor toward her hiding spot. The storm drain was a concrete tomb that stretched beneath the city like the arteries of some vast buried heart. Mara crawled through the darkness, her shoulders screaming with each movement. The detonator's weight growing heavier with every yard. Behind her, she could hear them coming, boots on metal, voices echoing through the tunnels, mechanical click of weapons being checked. Water rushed around her ankles, carrying the taste of rust and rain. She thought about David's last smile. About Tommy Martinez dying alone on the docks. About Sarah Chen in her college dorm. It's probably studying for midterms and never knowing that men had died to give her that chance. The tunnel branched ahead. Left led deeper into the drainage system toward possible escape. Right led back toward the factory, toward the men hunting her, toward Marcus Volkov and the kind of justice that could only be measured in blood and smoke. Mara chose right. She emerged from a maintenance access point 50 yards from the factory's loading dock. Through the grimy windows, she could see the sweep of flashlight beams, silhouettes of armed men spreading through the building. David was nowhere to be seen, either dead or captured, and both possibilities made her stomach clench with grief. In rage, her phone had 2 bars of signal. Enough. The number she dialed was one she'd memorized, but never used. A lifeline Tommy Martinez had given her 3 years ago in case she ever found the courage to do what was right. FBI tip line. This is Mara Santos. I'm calling about Operation Nightfall. The words felt like stones in her throat. Marcus Volkov is at the Millfield Textile Factory on Riverside Drive. He has 6 armed men with him. And in exactly 10 minutes, that building is going to explode. Ma'am, can you repeat 10 minutes? Mara said. Hung up. She crouched behind a dumpster and watched the factory through the scope of David's backup rifle. The one he'd given her, just in case. Through the windows, she could see Marcus barking orders, his men spreading out to search every corner, looking for her. Looking for David's body. At the 8-minute mark, sirens began to wail in the distance. At the 7-minute mark, Marcus appeared in the main doorway, his silver hair catching the light. He was dragging something. Someone, David, alive, barely conscious. Blood streaming from a head wound, Mara's finger found the detonator's trigger. One press, and it would all be over. Marcus, his operation, the endless cycle of violence that had claimed Tommy and Sarah and countless others. David would die, but he'd already made his choice. Already decided that some prices were worth paying. The sirens were getting closer. 6 minutes. Marcus pressed his gun to David's temple and shouted into the night. I know you're out there, Mara. I know you can see this. You want him to live. You come out now. Through the scope, she could see David's lips moving. Even at this distance, she could read them. Do it. 5 minutes. The first police cars rounded the corner, followed by black SUVs that screamed federal agents. Marcus's men scattered like roaches in sudden light. But Marcus himself stood firm, human shield in hand. Predator backed into a corner. For minutes, Mara stood up, rifle slung across her back, detonator in her left hand. She walked out of the shadows and into the light, approaching the factory with steady steps while FBI agents took positions behind their vehicles. Let him go, Marcus, she called out. Marcus's laugh was broken glass. Why would I do that? You're going to die anyway. Both of you. 3 minutes. Because I'm not the scared girl you recruited off the streets anymore, Mara said. She was close enough now to see the wild desperation in Marcus's eyes, the way his hand shook on the gun. Because I know what Tommy knew. That some fights are worth having, even when you know they'll kill you. 2 minutes. The FBI is here, Marcus. They know about the trafficking, about the accounts, about everything. It's over. Marcus's smile was pure malice. Maybe, but you'll never know how it ends. He pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed across the lot like thunder, and David crumpled to the ground. Marcus raised his weapon toward Mara, but she was already moving, already pressing the detonator's trigger. It's already diving behind the nearest police car as the factory erupted into flames. The explosion lit up the night. It's like a newborn star. Windows shattered for blocks in every direction. The building collapsed inward on itself, taking Marcus Volkov and his secrets with it into the grave. When the smoke cleared and the ringing in her ears faded, Mara found herself in the back of an ambulance, FBI agents asking questions she was too tired to answer. But David was in the ambulance next to her, alive, conscious, his hand reaching across the narrow space between their gurneys to find hers. Is it over? He asked. Mara squeezed his fingers, thinking about Sarah Chen and her college textbooks, about Tommy Martinez and his desperate courage, about the $12 million that would find its way to the right families, eventually, about justice and vengeance and the thin line between them. Yeah, she said, it's over. 6 months later, Mara Santos walked into a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon. The barista was a young woman with bright eyes and calloused hands, a pre-med student working her way through school. She didn't know that the quiet customer who came in every Tuesday morning was the reason she was still alive. Mara ordered her usual coffee and left a $100 tip, the way she did every week. Small acts of grace in a world that had shone. Her precious little David was waiting outside, leaning against the car they'd bought with money from his legitimate business. The one that helped trafficking survivors start new lives. How is she? He asked. Good, strong. She's going to be a doctor. Mara climbed into the passenger seat and rolled down the window, letting the clean Oregon air wash over her face. Tommy would be proud. David started the engine, and they drove toward the coast. Toward a small house with a view of the ocean, where they were learning to live with their scars and their memories and each other. Learning that redemption wasn't a moment but a choice, made new every day. In the rearview mirror, the city faded into distance and shadow. And for the first time in her life,